Hello, my name is Kelsey Zuniga, and today I will be presenting the article titled New Ideas About Hydration and Its Impact on Athletes' Brain, Heart, and Muscles by Jose Gonzalez Alonso. This article examines how dehydration, when combined with heat stress, impacts endurance performance and physiological functions. Rather than just stating that dehydration reduces performance, the author explores the specific mechanisms affecting the heart, skeletal muscle, and brain, and explains under what conditions performance is most compromised. The article begins by defining dehydration as the loss of body water through thermoregulatory sweating. During prolonged exercise, especially in hot environments, athletes can lose between 1 and 2.5 liters of fluid per hour. If the losses are not replaced, dehydration progressively develops. However, an important theme throughout this article is that dehydration alone is not always the primary issue. Instead, the combination of dehydration and abnormally high body temperature, known as hyperthermia, creates the greatest physiological strain. The degree of impairment depends on several interacting factors, including the level of dehydration, exercise intensity, environmental temperature, and the athlete's fitness and heat acclimation status. In other words, an athlete unacclimated to heat, exercising in a hot and humid environment, will experience a much greater strain than an athlete exercising in cooler conditions. When examining endurance performance, the article separates submaximal and maximal exercise capacity. During prolonged submaximal exercise in the heat, dehydration of approximately 3 to 4% of body mass significantly impairs endurance performance. During submaximal exercise, the body is often able to maintain overall oxygen use even when cardiac output decreases. It does this by pulling more oxygen out of the blood at the muscle level to make up for the reduced blood flow. However, during high-intensity or near maximal efforts, such as hard cycling for 3 to 10 minutes, this compensation is no longer enough. When dehydration is combined with elevated body temperature, VO2 and maximal endurance performance declines. In cooler environments, similar levels of dehydration have a smaller impact on aerobic metabolism and performance. This highlights a key concept from the article. Hydration effects are highly context dependent. The cardiovascular system plays a central role in this process. With progressive dehydration during prolonged exercise in the heat, the cardiac output declines, stroke volume decreases, and heart rate rises. This phenomenon is often referred to as cardiovascular drift. The reduction in stroke volume is primarily due to decreased blood volume and increased core temperature, which limits cardiac filling. During submaximal exercise, oxygen delivery is maintained because peripheral tissue compensate by extracting more oxygen from the blood. However, during maximal efforts, this compensation is not enough, leading to reduced oxygen delivery and impaired aerobic capacity. In cooler conditions or during low-intensity exercise, cardiac output is not significantly compromised, further reinforcing that the magnitude of physiological strain depends on the environment and exercise demands. The skeletal muscle experiences similar circulatory changes. During prolonged full-body exercise in the heat with dehydration, limb blood flow decreases significantly. At submaximal intensities, increased oxygen extraction allows muscle oxygen consumption to remain stable. However, during maximal exercise, the muscle's ability to further increase oxygen extraction is limited. As a result, muscle oxygen consumption declines, anaerobic metabolism increases, and fatigue develops more rapidly. The article suggests that this mismatch between energy demand and oxygen supply contributes to the decline in maximal performance. Fluid ingestion that minimizes dehydration reduces the physiological strain and preserved performance capacity. The brain is also affected by dehydration and hypothermia. Elevations in core temperature of approximately 1.5 degrees Celsius or 34.7 degrees Fahrenheit can reduce cerebral blood flow by 15 to 25%. When dehydration accompanies heat stress, cerebral blood flow declines more rapidly, partly due to hyperventilation and reduced carbon dioxide levels, which cause cerebral vasoconstriction. Despite these reductions in blood flow, brain oxygen consumption is generally preserved because oxygen extraction increases. Therefore, reduced brain oxygen metabolism does not appear to be the primary cause of performance decline. Instead, the combined strain on the cardiovascular and muscular systems, particularly during high-intensity exercise in a hot condition, is more likely responsible for earlier fatigue. In summary, severe dehydration combined with hypothermia impairs both submaximal and maximal endurance performance. These impairments are associated with reduction in cardiac output, decreased muscle blood flow, increased physiological strain, enhanced reliance on muscle glycogen, and altered neural activation. However, the extent of the impairment depends heavily on the environmental temperature, exercise intensity, and individual characteristics such as fitness and heat acclimation. Hydration should therefore be understood as one component of an integrated physiological system rather than an isolated variable. From a practical standpoint, this article provides several important applications for professionals in the sport nutrition field. First, hydration strategy should be individualized based on environmental conditions, sweat rate, exercise intensity, and duration. Monitoring pre and post-exercise body mass changes can help practitioners estimate sweat loss and guide fluid replacement strategies. Second, preventing body mass losses greater than 2 to 3% during prolonged exercise in hot environments may help reduce cardiovascular strain and preserve performance capacity. Third, practitioners should recognize that fluid needs are lower during low-intensity exercise or in cold environments, where dehydration has minimal performance consequences. Hydration planning should therefore be periodized and aligned with training demands. Additionally, integrating heat acclimation protocols can reduce hyperthermic strain and improve tolerance to hot conditions. Monitoring heart rate drift and perceived exertion during training sessions can also provide practical indicators for developing dehydration-related strain. Overall, this article reinforces that hydration is not simply about preventing thirst. It is about managing physiological strain across multiple organ systems to preserve endurance capacity. The interaction between dehydration, hypothermia, and exercise intensity determines whether performance is significantly compromised. For sport nutrition professionals, understanding these mechanisms allows for more precise and evidence-based hydration strategies that support both training adaptations and competitive performance.